Do you dare to venture into a world where love was earned with a sword, where devotion was measured in blood, and where a fiercely protective heart could turn the tide of fate? What did it really mean to shield your beloved from danger in the harsh, unforgiving medieval ages? Number 8. Bolli Þorleiksson, the steadfast defender of his household. In the sprawling, complex world of the Icelandic sagas, particularly the grand Laxdæla Saga, love stories are rarely simple affairs of flowers and gentle words. They are often tales of intertwined destinies, feuds and passions that burn so bright they leave devastation in their wake. Bolli Þorleiksson stands out as a man whose protective instincts, though perhaps twisted by the societal norms of his time, were fiercely dedicated to the woman he chose to make his wife, Guðrún and Steingerðr. Bolli was handsome, strong, and well-regarded, the foster brother and friend of Kjartan, but the love of Guðrún, a woman famed for her beauty and intelligence, cast a long, dark shadow over this bond. Guðrún loved Kjartan first, but when he lingered abroad and seemed to forget her, she was persuaded to marry Bolli. This marriage, though born of a misunderstanding, forged a powerful and possessive bond in Bolli. Once Guðrún was his wife, Bolli's loyalty and protectiveness shifted entirely to her and their shared future. The saga vividly portrays the growing tension between the two foster brothers after Kjartan's return. Kjartan felt betrayed, and Guðrún, though married, still harbored feelings for him which she did not hide from Bolli. This created a volatile situation, and Bolli, as the husband, was acutely aware of the shame and potential threat to his household's honor if his wife's former lover continued to pursue her or to flaunt their past connection. His protection in this sense was not just about shielding Guðrún physically, but about defending her reputation as his wife and preserving the integrity of their marriage and family. Bolli felt the sting of Kjartan's jibes, the passive, aggressive taunts that chipped away at his honor. Kjartan would sometimes ride past Bolli's farm deliberately ignoring him, or make remarks that implied Guðrún had been foolish to marry Bolli. For a man in Viking age, Iceland, a slight to one's honor was a profound injury, and a slight concerning one's wife was an unbearable burden. Bolli, seeing his wife's distress and feeling his own pride erode, knew he had to act. The moment of ultimate, albeit tragic, protection came when the feud between Kjartan and Bolli escalated beyond words. Guðrún herself played a part in fanning the flames, urging Bolli to confront Kjartan. The saga states that she told Bolli that Kjartan had insulted him and that he needed to assert his manhood. This was a dangerous provocation, but it struck a chord with Bolli's protective nature. He felt compelled to defend his standing as Guðrún's husband and the head of their household. When the two groups of men finally met, the situation quickly turned deadly. Kjartan, unwilling to fight his foster brother directly, hesitated. But Bolli, pushed to the brink by accumulated slights, and Guðrún's urging struck the fatal blow. He killed Kjartan, not out of pure malice, but out of a desperate, misguided act of protection. He was protecting his honor, his marriage, and his life with Guðrún from the constant pressure exerted by Kjartan's presence. After Kjartan's death, Bolli's protective stance towards Guðrún became even more pronounced, though now it was tinged with sorrow and the weight of his actions. He knew the blood feud that would follow, and he actively worked to defend his family against retaliation. The saga describes how Bolli managed the aftermath, seeking a settlement that would allow him and Guðrún to live in peace. He bore the burden of the killing, facing down Kjartan's kinsmen, asserting his claim to Guðrún and ensuring the safety of their children. His protective love was not just about passionate gestures, but about the hard, enduring work of maintaining a family in a society where violent retribution was common. He stood by Guðrún even when she revealed her true feelings, admitting that she loved Kjartan most. This difficult admission did not break Bolli's commitment. Instead, he continued to live with her, raising their children and providing for them. This enduring commitment, despite the emotional complexities and the dark deed he had committed, shunks as a deep, albeit complicated form of fierce protection, driven by an unyielding desire to safeguard his chosen life, and the woman at its center. Bolli's story is a stark reminder that in the medieval world, protecting one's beloved often meant taking drastic, even tragic, measures to secure their place and future within the harsh realities. Number 7. Kormákr, the spellbound warrior of Steingerðr's heart. Kormáks, Saga, one of the Icelandic sagas of the Icelanders, plunges us into the tumultuous, often self-sabotaging love story of Kormákr, Ögmundarson, and Steingerðr. Þorleiksson, Kormákr, is a poet, a warrior, and a man cursed by a witch's spell which seems to prevent him from ever fully possessing Steingerðr. Yet, despite these magical hindrances and his own impulsive nature, his entire life seems to revolve around his fierce, albeit often clumsy, attempts to protect and be with Steingerðr. His protection of her is less about direct physical threats from others and more about his relentless pursuit and defense of his claim to her, even against her own family and later, her husband's. Kormákr fell deeply in love with Steingerðr, whose beauty was legendary. His poetry, often recited in her presence, was his first means of expressing his devotion and, in a way, his claim. But the saga details that a curse placed on him by a witch named Þorleiksson, whom he had slighted, was meant to thwart his love for Steingerðr. This curse specifically meant he would never be able to complete their union. Despite this, Kormákr continually sought to win Steingerðr. He fought duels, composed verses, and faced down her family members who often disapproved of his wild ways. The saga describes how Kormákr was often involved in various skirmishes and feuds, many of which had a connection to his passionate feelings for Steingerðr. When he first proposed to Steingerðr, her father, Þorleiksson, was reluctant, seeing Kormákr as too rash and unreliable. Kormákr's response was not to retreat, but to assert his intent more fiercely. He would challenge anyone who stood in his way physically or verbally. One key incident that shanked his protective nature, however misguided, was when he was supposed to marry Steingerðr. The marriage was arranged, and Kormákr was set to arrive at the wedding feast. But due to the curse, he kept delaying, arriving too late, and Steingerðr, heartbroken and humiliated, was married off to another man, Bolli. Kormákr's protection here was not about preventing the marriage, but about continuing to assert his love and claim despite it. He would then constantly provoke Bolli, often through insults or by trying to woo Steingerðr back. This led to a series of duels and confrontations where Kormákr fought not just for his own honor, but for his right to Steingerðr. For example, he fought Bolli twice. The first time, Kormákr wounded Bolli, badly forcing him to concede temporary victory. The second time, they fought over a whale carcass that Bolli had claimed, and Kormákr tried to take, deliberately escalating tensions all to keep himself entangled in Steingerðr's life. He saw himself as Steingerðr's true partner, and anyone else was an obstacle he needed to remove or overcome. Even after Steingerðr divorced Bolli and married another man named Þorvaldur, Kormákr did not give up. He followed her, continuing his relentless pursuit. He once challenged Þorvaldur to a duel over Steingerðr, demonstrating his unwavering conviction that she belonged with him. The saga describes how he would often linger near her home, compose poems about her beauty and their ill-fated love, and generally make a nuisance of himself to her current husband, thus subtly undermining the other man's position as her protector. This constant hovering, this refusal to let go, was his particular brand of fierce protection. He believed he was the only man truly worthy of her, the only one who understood her. And he would fight, metaphorically and literally, to keep that belief alive. His protective acts often resulted in him being wounded or outlawed, as he was often the instigator of conflict. For instance, he was outlawed for killing a man who insulted Steingerðr's family, even though the slight was directed at her brother. This shows his willingness to defend her broader family honor, which was an extension of his love for her. When Kormákr left Iceland and traveled to Norway, he still found ways to be near Steingerðr. When she divorced Þorvaldur and sought to return to Iceland, Kormákr happened to be on the same ship. During the voyage, the ship was attacked by berserks. Kormákr, the warrior, defended the ship fiercely, protecting everyone on board, including Steingerðr. This was a direct selfless act of protection that highlights his warrior prowess, applied directly to ensure her safety. Later, in Ireland, Kormákr fought a duel against a giant and was fatally wounded. The saga mentions that even in his final moments his thoughts were of Steingerðr. Kormákr's love for Steingerðr was a consuming fire, driving him to continuous acts of defiance, courage, and relentless pursuit, all in the name of claiming and protecting his beloved, even from the harsh realities of fate and magic. Number 6. Floris, the unyielding traveler for his Blanchefleur. The old French romance, Fleur et Blanchefleur, tells a heartwarming and often incredibly perilous tale of young love, separation, and the lengths to which a devoted lover will go to find and protect his beloved. Floris, a Christian prince, and Blanchefleur, a Saracen orphan of noble birth, grew up together, educated in the same school, and fell deeply in love. Their bond was pure and inseparable, but it was an illicit love in the eyes of Floris's parents, the king and queen of Spain, who had designs for their son to marry royalty. When they discovered the depth of Floris's feelings for Blanchefleur, their reaction was swift and cruel, setting the stage for Floris's unwavering fierce protection of his beloved. King and queen, determined to break their children's bond, decided to sell Blanchefleur into slavery. They waited until Floris was away hunting, then seized Blanchefleur and sold her to merchants for a hefty sum, telling Floris upon his return that she had died. Floris, consumed by grief, threatened to take his own life. This desperate reaction made his parents reveal the truth. Blanchefleur was alive, but far away, sold to a distant emir. The moment Floris learned she was alive, his grief turned into a fierce determination to find her, no matter the cost, no matter the distance. This was the true beginning of his protective journey. Not just to find her, but to rescue her from a life of servitude and bring her back to freedom and happiness. Floris, disguised as a pilgrim, set out on a perilous quest. Carried with him a golden cup, a family heirloom, which he used to bribe and persuade people to help him. His journey was fraught with danger. He traveled through foreign lands, where customs were different, and where he could easily be robbed or killed. He had to learn new languages and adapt to strange environments. Yet his resolve never wavered. Fueled by the singular goal of reaching Blanchefleur, he encountered many people who tried to mislead him, but his cunning and his gold helped him overcome these obstacles. His protection of Blanchefleur, at this stage, was indirect, but profoundly active. He was literally traversing the world, facing every imaginable challenge, simply to get to her, to be able to protect her directly. His journey eventually led him to the emir's palace in Babylon, a place legendary for its beauty and, more importantly, for its women's tower, where the emir kept 100 virgins, one of whom he would choose as his wife. Floris learned that Blanchefleur was among these maidens, a potential future wife for the emir, a fate that would surely doom their love. This revelation only intensified his urgency and his protective drive. Getting into the tower was an impossible task, guarded by eunuchs and high walls. But Floris, with the help of a sympathetic gatekeeper and his golden cup, devised a plan. He feigned illness, then bribed the gatekeeper to let him be carried into the tower in a basket of flowers, a truly daring and cunning act of infiltration. Once inside the tower, Floris had to locate Blanchefleur among 100 identical chambers. He used his wit and observations, eventually finding her by following the sounds of a conversation with her loyal maid Cador. His reunion with Blanchefleur was ecstatic, but their danger was far from over. They spent many blissful days together, hidden in her chamber, but their secret was eventually discovered. The emir's seneschal found them asleep in each other's arms, and they were immediately condemned to death. This was the ultimate test of Floris's protective love. Facing execution, Floris and Blanchefleur displayed remarkable courage. When presented before the emir, Floris pleaded for Blanchefleur's life, offering his own in exchange. He said he would gladly die if she could live. Recruiting an incredible, self-sacrificing love, Blanchefleur, in turn, refused to live without him, begging to die first. Their mutual devotion and their readiness to die for each other moved the emir and his council. The emir, impressed by their pure love and daring, decided to spare them. Instead of execution, they were allowed to marry. Floris's journey of protection, which began with a desperate search across continents and culminated in a daring infiltration and a selfless plea for his beloved's life, proved victorious. He not only rescued Blanchefleur from a life of servitude, but also from certain death, securing their future together. The story of Floris and Blanchefleur stands as a powerful testament to love's capacity to overcome vast distances and seemingly insurmountable obstacles through unwavering courage and fierce, protective devotion. Number 5. Yvain, the chivalrous champion of Laudin's kingdom. Chrétien de Troyes' Yvain, the Knight of the Lion, or Le Chevalier au Lion, introduces us to a knight of King Arthur's Round Table, whose fears pertwined with his chivalric duties and his own journey of self-discovery. Yvain, known for his bravery and impulsiveness, first encounters Laudine in the most unusual of circumstances. He has just slain her husband, Esclados the Red, in a magical forest fountain. Laudine, the Lady of the Fountain, is understandably grief-stricken and hostile. Yet Yvain, aided by Laudine's cunning maid Lunette, manages to win her heart and hand in marriage. This marriage, though initially politically motivated for Laudine as she needed a protector for her lands, quickly becomes the foundation for Yvain's fierce, active, and eventually redemptive protective love. Once married, Yvain becomes the lord of the magical fountain and protector of Laudine's domain. Takes his role seriously, defending her lands against any threat. His very presence as her husband is a form of protection, securing her position and ensuring the continued prosperity of her lands. However, Yvain makes a critical mistake. Lured by his cousin Gawain's advice to pursue knightly adventures, he neglects his duties to Laudine and overstays his leave of absence from her. Laudine, feeling betrayed and dishonored by his neglect, sends Lunette to reclaim her ring, effectively banishing him from her life and severing their bond. This act of rejection shatters Yvain, driving him into a period of madness and despair. But it also sets the stage for his most profound acts of protective love, as he must now work to redeem himself and prove his worthiness to Laudine once more. Yvain's path to redemption and renewed protection begins when he rescues a lion from a dragon. The lion incredibly becomes his loyal companion, aiding him in all his future adventures, thus earning him the epithet Knight of the Lion. With his new companion, Yvain embarks on a series of quests where he selflessly protects the innocent and the wrong. These acts, though not directly for Laudine, are all part of his journey to become a better, more protective knight worthy of her. He saves Lunette, his former advocate, from being burned at the stake, an act that slowly begins to mend the bridge between him and Laudine. He fights against wicked giants, protects a castle of helpless maidens from a tyrannical lord, and saves a silk merchant's 3 daughters from a tyrannical brother. Each act of protection reinforces his growth and his commitment to justice and defense of the vulnerable. The ultimate demonstration of Yvain's fierce protective love for Laudine comes when her kingdom is threatened again. Her lands are under attack, and she finds herself in need of a powerful champion to defend her magical fountain, which is the source of her prosperity and power. She needs a knight to fight the treacherous Count Aliers, who has repeatedly besieged her territories. Unbeknownst to Laudine, Lunette, seeing Yvain's changed character and his unwavering loyalty, despite her past actions, cunningly arranges for Yvain to be the one to defend Laudine's fountain. Yvain, still disguised and unknown to Laudine as her former husband, agrees to fight as her champion. In a dramatic and decisive battle, Yvain, the Knight of the Lion, fights fiercely against Count Aliers, defeating him and driving away his forces. This victory not only saves Laudine's kingdom from ruin, but also reaffirms her authority and protects her people. It is a powerful, direct act of military protection, ensuring the security and future of her domain. The saga describes the intensity of the battle, highlighting Yvain's skill and determination, all undertaken for the sake of the lady he hopes to win back. After the battle, Laudine still does not recognize him. But Lunit eventually reveals his true identity, and Laudine, seeing his unwavering devotion, his profound change, and his fierce commitment to her and her lands, finally forgives him. Yvain's protective love was not just about saving his beloved from immediate danger, but about redeeming himself, proving his unwavering loyalty, and becoming the steadfast champion her kingdom needed. Number 4. Eric, the redeemed champion of Enid's honor. Chrétien de Troyes' Eric and Enid tells a profound story of love, chivalry, and redemption, where Eric, a knight of King Arthur's Round Table, undergoes a transformation to become a truly fiercely protective lover for his beautiful wife. Enid, their story begins as a fairy tale romance. Eric, captivated by Enid's beauty and gentle nature, marries her swiftly. Their love is so deep that Eric for a time forgets his knightly duties, spending his days in blissful idleness with Enid. This period, known as his recreantes, or idleness, leads to gossip and criticism among the court, who believe he has lost his valor. Enid, deeply distressed by this and fearing for Eric's reputation, weeps and laments, inadvertently waking Eric and revealing her worries. Eric, stung by the truth and realizing his mistake, resolves to embark on a perilous quest, not only to regain his honor, but also to test Enid's loyalty, and in doing so, to re-establish his role as her active, protective champion. The journey they undertake is filled with trials, and initially, Eric's behavior towards Enid is harsh. He orders her to ride ahead of him, forbidding her to speak, no matter what dangers they face. This is part of his test, a misguided attempt to prove her devotion. However, Enid, despite her fear and distress, consistently warns him of approaching dangers, even when forbidden to speak. This constant, quiet act of loyalty from Enid brings out Eric's true protective instincts each time she warns him. And he confronts the danger, he fights fiercely, not just for his own survival, but increasingly for her safety and well-being. One of the first major challenges they face is an encounter with 3 robber knights. Enid, seeing them approaching, warns Eric, breaking his command. Eric, though feigning anger, confronts the knights and defeats them, stripping them of their horses and armor. He then forces Enid to lead the horses, further burdening her, but this act of protection is clear. Later, they encounter 5 more robber knights, then another group of 5. Each time, Enid warns him, and Eric, with growing fierceness, defeats them all. The saga vividly describes his prowess in battle, how he single-handedly overcomes these groups of assailants, always with the underlying motive of protecting Enid from harm and humiliation. His anger, initially directed at Enid for speaking slowly, transforms into a focused rage against those who would threaten her. The story intensifies with encounters that truly highlight Eric's protective zeal. They arrive at a castle where the Lord Glivret the Little attempts to steal Enid from Eric, believing Eric to be dead or incapacitated. Eric, though previously wounded, springs to Enid's defense with renewed vigor. He fights a fierce duel with Glivret, demonstrating his unwavering commitment to protect Enid's honor and her person. The fight is brutal, but Eric's determination to keep Enid safe and by his side pushes him to victory. Later, they encounter a count who, captivated by Enid's beauty, attempts to force her to leave Eric and marry him. This is a direct affront to Eric's rights and Enid's safety. Eric, despite being in a weakened state from previous battles, confronts the Count and his men with an unyielding ferocity. forcing them to retreat and leave the need unmolested. Perhaps the most dramatic test of Eric's protective love comes during the Joy de la Court adventure. Eric arrives at a magical garden where a knight has maintained a vigil challenging all who enter. Eric discovers that this knight, Mabanagrain, is trapped there by a vow he made to his lady. Eric chooses to fight Mabanagrain, a battle that is prolonged and incredibly difficult, testing Eric's strength and skill to their absolute limits. The reason Eric undertakes this quest is not just for adventure, but because he sees it as a means to fully redeem himself in Enid's eyes and to prove his unwavering chivalry. His victory breaks the enchantment, frees Mabanagrain, and brings great joy to the court. This final act of brave chivalry, undertaken for the good of others, and demonstrating his complete return to the ideal of knighthood, solidifies his role as Enid's ultimate protector. Through these trials, Eric sheds his idleness and emerges as a true paragon of protective love, capable of both physical defense and the steadfast dedication that ensures his beloved's honor and safety are paramount. Number 3. Gunnlaugur Ormstunga, the fierce poet of Helga's destiny. Gunnlaug's Saga Ormstungu, or the Saga of Gunnlaugur Serpent Tongue, is an intense and tragic tale of love and rivalry set in Iceland. At its heart lies the fierce and ultimately doomed love between the hot-headed poet Gunnlaugur and the beautiful Helga the Fair. From their very first meeting, it is clear that Gunnlaugur's desire for Helga is absolute, and his protective instincts, though often leading to violent confrontations, are entirely focused on her. Gunnlaugur's character is defined by his sharp wit, his poetic talent, and his quick temper, which often earned him the nickname Serpent Tongue. This combination made him a formidable, albeit challenging, protector. Gunnlaugur and Helga were childhood sweethearts, their bond sealed by a promise of marriage. However, Gunnlaugur, eager to travel and gain renown, asked for a 3-year grace period before returning to claim Helga. Helga's father, Thorstein Egilson, agreed, but with the condition that if Gunnlaugur did not return within 3 years, Helga would be free to marry another. This pact set the stage for the dramatic display of Gunnlaugur's protective love. During his travels abroad, Gunnlaugur quickly made a name for himself as a skilled warrior and poet, serving various kings, including King Olafra of Norway. But his fiery temper often landed him in disputes, and he was known to challenge anyone who slighted him or those he held dear. The saga describes how, while Gunnlaugur was away, a rival suitor named Hrafn Onundarson, a handsome and ambitious man, began to pursue Helga. Hrafn was also a poet, and he felt a growing rivalry with Gunnlaugur, not just for Helga's hand, but for status and honor. As the 3-year deadline approached, Gunnlaugur was held up by commitments to King Aethelred in England, who refused to let him leave. This delay, though beyond his control, was a direct threat to his claim on Helga. Hrafn, seizing the opportunity, pressed his suit, and Helga's father, bound by his word, allowed the marriage to proceed after the deadline passed. This forced marriage was a profound blow to Gunnlaugur, and it ignited his fiercest protective fury. Upon his return to Iceland, Gunnlaugur discovered Helga was married to Hrafn. His reaction was immediate and violent. He went directly to Hrafn's farm and demanded to speak with Helga. This was a clear challenge to Hrafn's authority as a husband and his claim to Helga. Gunnlaugur's protection of Helga at this point transformed from a promise of marriage to a direct confrontation to reclaim her and to defend her honor and his own. He challenged Hrafn to a holmgang, a formal duel to the death over Helga's hand. This was a desperate and dangerous act, but it showed the absolute intensity of his protective love. He was willing to risk his life to take her back. The first duel between Gunnlaugur and Hrafn was a chaotic affair fought during the Alþingi, the Icelandic assembly. The fight was interrupted, but the underlying tension remained. Gunnlaugur continued to pursue Helga, visiting her composing poems about her and generally making Hrothmund's life miserable. He was relentless in his attempts to undermine Hrothmund's marriage to Helga. This constant presence, this refusal to yield, was a continuous act of protection, ensuring that Hrothmund could never truly claim Helga without challenge. Gunnlaugur made it clear that he was Helga's true intended, and he would not let Hrothmund forget it. The feud finally culminated in a second holmgang in Norway, a more remote location where they could fight to the death without interruption. Both men knew this was the final showdown for Helga. The saga describes the ferocity of this duel. Gunnlaugur, despite suffering grievous wounds, managed to strike Hrothmund a mortal blow. However, Hrothmund in his dying moments tricked Gunnlaugur, asking for water and then delivering a fatal wound to Gunnlaugur's head. Even in death, Gunnlaugur's protective love was evident. He had fought to the bitter end for Helga, sacrificing his life to defeat his rival and assert his undying claim to her. The saga ends with Helga, broken by the loss of both men, eventually dying with the costly headdress that Gunnlaugur had given her. Gazing at it in her final moments, Gunnlaugur's story is a raw, powerful testament to a love so fierce it led to an inevitable, tragic, but unyielding battle for the woman he believed was his destiny. Number 2. Lancelot, the unwavering shield of Queen Guinevere. In the sprawling and influential tapestry of Arthurian romances, particularly those stemming from the Vulgate cycle and the works of Chrétien de Troyes, Lancelot du Lac stands as the quintessential embodiment of a fiercely protective lover. His devotion to Queen Guinevere, King Arthur's wife, is legendary, a love so powerful it shakes the very foundations of Camelot. Lancelot's protection of Guinevere is not merely an occasional act. It is the driving force behind his entire knightly career, often compelling him to perform incredible feats of bravery, even against his own king, and the strictures of chivalry. Lancelot, introduced as the finest knight in the world, becomes utterly smitten with Queen Guinevere. Their love, though adulterous, is depicted with a consuming passion that binds them irrevocably. Lancelot pledges his life to her service, and this pledge translates into an unwavering commitment to protect her honor, her person, and her reputation at all costs. His entire being becomes dedicated to her safety and happiness. One of the most famous and direct instances of Lancelot's protective love is depicted in Chrétien de Troyes' Lancelot, or The Knight of the Cart. Guinevere is abducted by the wicked Meleagant, son of King Badamog, who takes her to his impenetrable kingdom from which no one has ever returned. Lancelot, hearing of her plight, immediately sets out on a desperate rescue mission. His journey is filled with humiliation and incredible risks. He rides in a cart meant for criminals, enduring the scorn of onlookers simply because it is the only way to quickly follow Guinevere's trail. He endures physical pain and social disgrace, all for the sake of reaching his beloved. He fights off multiple knights, breaks through enchanted barriers, and faces down Meleagant's formidable warriors, driven solely by the urgent need to free Guinevere. When he finally reaches her, he defeats Meleagant in a fierce combat, securing her freedom. This entire episode is a monumental act of physical and spiritual protection, demonstrating his readiness to sacrifice everything, even his honor, for her. Lancelot's protection of Guinevere extends beyond physical rescue. He is her champion in every sense. When Guinevere is accused of treason or adultery, Lancelot consistently steps forward to defend her honor in trial by combat. A prominent example is the time she is accused of poisoning a knight. Lancelot, though absent, returns just in time to fight for her, risking his life to prove her innocence and uphold her good name against false accusations. He knows that a loss in such a combat would mean her public execution, and he simply cannot allow that to happen. His prowess in battle ensures her safety and vindication. Furthermore, Lancelot often protects Guinevere from the political machinations and jealousies within Arthur's court. He is constantly aware of the dangers she faces as queen and as his beloved. He protects her by keeping their affair a secret for as long as possible, navigating the treacherous waters of courtly intrigue. When their secret is finally exposed, leading to Guinevere's condemnation to be burned at the stake, Lancelot does not hesitate. He mounts a daring and violent rescue, fighting his way through Arthur's loyal knights, including Gawain's brothers, to snatch Guinevere from the flames. This desperate act, though it tragically ignites a civil war that destroys Camelot, is the ultimate testament to his fierce, unyielding, protective love. He chooses her life and safety over loyalty to his king and the peace of the realm. His love for her is so paramount that he is willing to tear down everything he has built, and everything Arthur holds dear to ensure her survival. Even in the final days of the Arthurian legend, when Guinevere retreats to a nunnery and Lancelot becomes a hermit, his devotion, though no longer expressed through physical protection, remains unwavering, continues to pray for her soul, and remains fiercely committed to her spiritual well-being until his own death. Lancelot's life is a testament to a love so consuming and protective that it reshaped the very world he lived in. Number 1. Tristan, the legendary blade of Isolde's devotion. The tragic and intensely passionate tale of Tristan and Isolde, originating in the medieval Celtic and French traditions, features Tristan as the archetypal, fiercely protective lover. His love for Isolde, kindled by a magical love potion, becomes an all-consuming force that drives him to extraordinary lengths of heroism, deception, and sacrifice, all for the sake of safeguarding his beloved, even from the harsh realities of fate and the wrath of kings. Tristan, a skilled knight and a master of disguise and cunning, dedicates his life to protecting Isolde, Queen of Cornwall, from dangers both external and internal. Tristan is initially sent to Ireland to bring back the beautiful Isolde the Fair to be the bride of his uncle, King Mark of Cornwall. During the voyage, they accidentally drink a powerful love potion, binding them in an unbreakable, passionate, and illicit love. From this moment on, Tristan's primary purpose becomes the protection of Isolde. His first act of protection, though subtle, is to help her navigate the complexities of her new life at court, including the wedding night where Isolde must cleverly disguise her virginity. He helps her maintain appearances and evade suspicion, knowing that exposure would lead to her death. Tristan's protective actions often involve his cunning and resourcefulness. He frequently employs disguises, transforming himself into a beggar, a leper, or even a madman to secretly meet Isolde, or to ensure her safety without revealing their affair to King Mark or his watchful courtiers. These disguises are not merely for secret rendezvous. They are a means for Tristan to remain close to Isolde, to observe her situation, and to be ready to intervene at a moment's notice should she face danger. He would brave discomfort and humiliation, often enduring scorn and physical hardship, simply to be near her and to offer his silent protection. When King Mark's barons and jealous courtiers suspect the affair, they constantly plot to expose Tristan and Isolde, threatening Isolde's life and honor. Tristan repeatedly intervenes, using his intellect and bravery to outwit their schemes. For example, when Isolde is forced to undergo a trial by ordeal to prove her innocence, Tristan devises a clever plan. He disguises himself as a beggar, and as Isolde disembarks her ship, he intentionally stumbles, allowing her to step over him. This allowed her to swear an oath that she had never embraced any man except her husband. And the poor beggar she had just stepped over, the ordeal is past, and Isolde is cleared, thanks to Tristan's quick thinking and willingness to debase himself for her sake. This was an incredibly dangerous gambit, and Tristan's calm execution of it was a testament to his protective love. Tristan's physical prowess is also frequently employed in Isolde's defense. He faces down envious knights, assassins, and vengeful lords who seek to harm Isolde or separate them. He fights numerous duels, often against overwhelming odds, to protect her. For instance, when King Mark discovers their affair and condemns Isolde to be burned at the stake, Tristan without hesitation mounts a daring rescue. He bursts into the execution grounds, fighting off Mark's guards and carrying Isolde away to safety. This act of direct, violent protection is one of the most iconic moments in the saga, demonstrating his complete disregard for his own safety or reputation when Isolde's life is at stake. They escape into the Moroi forest, where they live a harsh life in exile, but Tristan fiercely protects Isolde from the elements and any human threats, providing for her and keeping her safe in the wilderness. Even after they are eventually separated and Tristan marries another Isolde of the White Hands, his heart remains entirely with Isolde the Fair. When Tristan is mortally wounded by a poisoned spear, he longs for Isolde the Fair, believing only she possesses the skill to heal him. He sends a ship to bring her, instructing the sailors to hoist a white sail if she is aboard, and a black sail if she is not. His life, even at its very end, depends on her presence. A final desperate act of longing for her ultimate protection and comfort, Isolde arrives, but due to a misunderstanding engineered by his jealous wife, Tristan is told the sail is black. He dies of despair just as Isolde arrives. Their tragic end, though not a physical protection from Tristan, is a testament to the fact that his entire existence, his very life force, was tied to her presence and his fierce, unwavering devotion. The story of Tristan and Isolde continues to resonate as a powerful symbol of a love so fierce it defies convention, law, and even death itself.